Welcome back. In this video, we will be exploring how alleles are responsible for different traits. So first, let's go ahead and do a little recap, all right? So in humans, we inherit 23 chromosomes from mom and 23 chromosomes from dad. Now, this is for humans, but different species have different number of chromosomes. So you'll see that the number of chromosomes vary among species. So genes are spread out across the chromosomes. For example, genes that code for hair color might be on chromosome 1, but genes for eye color might be on chromosome 15. Each chromosome can also contain between hundreds and thousands of genes, and you need 2 copies of each gene in order for the cell to make proteins. And to my right, I have a human karyotype with chromosomes, and you can see those dark bands representing the different genes. So let's look at a chromosome in detail. We're looking at the OCA2 gene, which is directly involved in the amount of melanin produced in cells, okay? And mutations in the OCA2 gene give us 2 different versions of that gene, okay? Now, the different versions of a gene are called alleles. So allele 1 codes for brown eye color, and allele 2 codes for blue eye color. And in the diagrams, even though there are hundreds of genes on a chromosome, we highlight the gene we are interested in by using bands. So we inherit 2 alleles for each gene. 1 allele comes from mom and 1 allele comes from dad, all right? So the alleles for a specific trait are represented by the same letter, but the dominant allele is capital while the recessive allele is lowercase. So in the case of eye color, capital B will represent the dominant allele and lowercase b would represent the recessive allele. Now, a dominant allele means that you only need to inherit 1 copy of that allele to show the dominant trait. So in both cases, whether you have 2 dominant alleles or whether you have a combination where there's only 1 dominant allele, it doesn't matter, because as long as there's a dominant, at least 1 dominant copy, that's the allele that's going to show the dominant trait. Now, recessive allele means that you need to inherit 2 copies of that allele from both parents in order for the trait to show. So the only way that a recessive trait will show is if mom passes down her recessive allele and dad does too. So the combination of genes determines what the organism looks like for each trait, right? So below are genetic makeups of different traits, and we're going to look at the genes inherited from each parent, and we're going to determine if the trait will be dominant or if the trait will be recessive. Now I'm going to do the first one with you. So you have a dominant T and you have a recessive T. And because you have at least 1 copy of the dominant allele, it will show the dominant trait, all right? Because you only need 1 copy of the dominant allele to show the dominant trait. That's the rule. So now that I've gone over the first one with you, I want you to get a little bit more practice and try the rest of the problems. And when you're done, you can press play so we can continue. All right, guys, so I hope you got some good practice in. I'm going to go over the answer key for the rest of the problems, and you can check your work before we move on, okay? So for the second one, you have 2 recessive E's, and so it will show the recessive trait. For the third problem, we have a dominant C and a recessive C. Again, we have at least 1 copy of that dominant allele, so it will show the dominant trait. Number 4, you have 2 dominant P's, so we'll show the dominant trait. And for number 5, we have a dominant W and a lowercase or recessive W, And again, if you have at least one copy of the dominant allele, it will show the dominant trait. And last but not least, you have two recessive Gs, so it will show the recessive trait. All right, guys, so now we're going to read each description and we're going to determine what trait will be expressed. All right? So I'm going to do the first one with you and guide you through the first one, and then you're going to go ahead and take off and do the other ones on your own. The gene for green color, capital G, is dominant, and the gene for yellow color, lowercase g, is recessive for shell color in beetles. What color will a beetle be with a genetic makeup of capital G or dominant G and lowercase g? So if we look at the genetic makeup, we have, again, a dominant and a recessive allele. And the rule is that as long as there's one copy of the dominant allele, that is the trait that it will show. So if we go back to the problem, the dominant allele codes for green color. So the beetle will be green because green is the dominant trait. All right, guys, so now that I've modeled how to do the first problem, I want you to use the same approach to complete the rest of the work. All right? You are ready for this. You've gotten enough practice, and now it's time for you to show off your skills to your teachers. With that said, I wish you the best of luck, and I'll see you back here for another instructional video. Take care, guys. Bye-bye.